the first module, which we're doing today, that's going to be, it's entitled Why NVC? Why Nonviolent Communication?
Yeah.
In other words, how did you get here? What brought you to this learning in step one? And in getting to that, the main purpose of this module is for you to look at what your values are in coming to nonviolent communication, coming to compassionate communication, and to formulate an intention that can accompany you throughout all the modules and hopefully throughout all your NVC learning throughout the future. That's the main aspect of Module 1. It's really the inner work, which we will write about, which we will talk about, and we'll take it from there throughout the rest of the modules, which are more learning-based. First, we're going to start going inward.
Yep. Yep. I believe everything starts inward. The intention is at the heart of everything, and so developing that sort of response to circumstances through tapping into yourself and being conscious of what's happening.
Right.
Of course, there's a lot of things I learned, like intentional slowing down, breathing, and that ties in with my also spiritual practice.
That's part of Module 1 as well. What do
Yeah.
you come to this class with? Do you come with your own moral paradigm? Do you come with a spiritual paradigm, as you alluded to? And with all that, we can formulate an intention of, what is it that you want to learn from NVC? In other words, how do you want to take this? What do you want to happen after we go through these 5 modules? What changes would you like to see in yourself and the world around you? That general, that big. And what steps are you going to take to at least do your best to see how those changes can actually manifest within the time frame of the course? So if I can put Module 1 on hold for a second, we'll get to that and we'll do the exercises.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about what comes after that. So the second module, or part 2 of the course, will be about barriers to healthy communication. In fact, the module is called Barriers to Communication because communication in general, we miss the mark. In fact, it might be a stretch to say, but we probably miss the mark more often than we hit it. And so if that's the case, then what are those barriers that get in the way of real, authentic, healthy communication that is empathic and honest at once? It's not a choice, but it's both of those realities happening at the same time. And that sounds easier said than done, but in a conversation that's very charged or that's emotionally filled, that's harder to do. And so it takes some practice. So we're going to look at the barriers around that.
Can you mention the 2 components again? The 2 aspects.
One of the key foundational aspects of nonviolent communication, so the 2 pillars, if you want to call them that, would be empathy and authenticity.
I think these are one of the...
Right, and many people often look at that. In fact, we've talked about this before, I think. They kind of choose between the 2. If I'm empathic, I'm not really being authentic.
Yeah.
And if I'm authentic, well, I'm not so kind and empathic, am I? Even though that sounds oversimplified, that tends to be the approach of a lot of people. And there's a way to do both. I think compassionate communication invites us to be in both empathy and authenticity.
So what's next?
The third module, so after we do that, we're going to actually do what you were asking about, which is a detailed exploration of what empathy is. The title of Module 3 is called, What is Empathy Anyway? Because when I came across the word empathy, for me it was synonymous with sympathy.
Same.
Yes.
Same, yeah.
A lot of us, I think, especially if we're not trained or raised in a environment of where healthy communication takes place and there's open communication. I certainly wasn't raised in that kind of an environment. I wasn't educated in that at all throughout all my formal schooling years. And I came across so few people that were. So I think it's probably wise for us to, in Module 3, focus on the topic of empathy because it underpins everything in nonviolent communication. compassionate communication. Empathy. What isn't it? In other words, what are the things that look like empathy but aren't empathy?
Yeah.
And then, because they look like it formally or outwardly, externally. What stands in the way of that, and how do we inculcate more of it?
I see.
So that's the third module.
Do you think it's important to name these things? Because, things that are not tangible, like feelings, like notions, like if we don't put them into words, most of the time we cannot work with them.
Sometimes naming them isn't necessary. Naming everything isn't necessary. I think that I would agree with that. However, in the process of learning compassionate communication, nonviolent communication, there are components of this process, of this, if you will, consciousness, but defining them helps us to understand what it's a common language. When we have common language, we can connect easier.
Exactly. Language,
and so language is important in that regard. What we say matters. There's also something called silent empathy. And silent empathy is very powerful. It's something that I really looked into as a way of connecting with someone without the use of language, without the use of words at all. Can it happen? It has. It does. And I've experienced it. Both receiving it as well as offering it. It's a topic in and of itself, silent empathy.
So what's the fourth module?
The fourth module this is kind of what I might call the meat and potatoes of nonviolent communication. The 4 components of nonviolent communication. So for simplicity's sake, I'll just, I'll name them.
Yeah.
Observation, feelings, emotions. The third one, needs, and the fourth one, requests or request. This we refer to as Offner in nonviolent communication. Observation, feeling, need, request. And each of those warrant an elaboration, explanation, and explanation regarding how they are discussed, utilized, and practiced in the context of nonviolent communication. They're very simple concepts, observation, but yet we often, again, miss the mark. And there's always a key distinction. So, for example, observation versus evaluation, or let's say need versus strategy. We might not know what that is right now here at the beginning of this course, but we will have a great understanding of what the difference is between a feeling and a thought, and a need and a strategy, a request and a demand.
That's beautiful, actually. That helped me a lot, especially when it comes to like emotional management. Understanding those in a time that is so fast, like our busy days.
Yes.
These things go by very quick, and sometimes not really differentiating between them might not be the best thing to do when it comes to communicating with others.
Well, it's good to, you name something really important, which is the busy pace and the fast pace of life that many of us live on a day-to-day basis with our families, with our careers, with our personal lives, everything. And we're going to talk about slowing down, because even though part 4, the 4 components of nonviolent communication, that's the longest of the modules, which will take the most time and will justifiably be a little more than the rest of the modules. In that context, we're going to talk about the aspect of slowing down. The aspect of actually practicing pause. The saying goes, when the emotion is strong, the pause is long.